The Dateable podcast is an insider's look into modern dating that the Huffington Post calls one of the top 10 podcasts about love and sex. On each episode, we'll talk to real daters about everything from sex parties to sex droughts, date fails to diaper fetishes, and first moves to first loves. I'm your host, Yue Xu, former dating coach turned dating sociologist. You'll also hear from my co-host and producer, Julie Krafchick, as we explore this crazy dateable world. Hello, friends. Welcome to Brunch Talk by the Dateable podcast. We are Yue and Julie, and we not only bring you brunch, but we also bring you the talk part of brunch, which is talking about dating, dating problems.
Actually, we don't bring you brunch at all because you're eating that on your own.
That's true. But we talk about brunch. So
yes, there we go.
We sort of bring you the idea of brunch.
We give you the idea of brunch. This is like the low-cal way of brunching because you're not eating anything.
I feel like that's going to be like a future diet fad.
Oh my God.
Thinking about food and talking about food, but not actually consuming the food.
That's not what I meant. That's a recipe for an eating disorder. But yes, you're with us. Maybe you're eating. That's great if you are. No one loves food more than I do. So I'm all for eating great brunches. And I shouldn't say that. A lot of people love food more than I do. But I love food. I'll leave it at that. I was like, that is not a correct statement. But anyways, we are excited to dish it out with you all. That's what we do best.
That's what we do best. Should we just get into the question?
I feel like we could talk about brunch all day, but let's get into the good stuff.
Brunch all day. That's a menu. Brunch all day. All right. The question is, should I follow the person I've been dating on Instagram?
More details that we got. I went on 2 dates with this girl and really like her. Wondering what's the right protocol for following her on social media. If I follow her now, will she take it to mean I'm interested or just creepy?
The times of Instagram dating. I'm so glad I never had to deal with this when I was dating in my 20s because it gets a little complicated. I still remember we had a conversation with Harrison. He was our resident younger dater in his 20s. And he was telling us that the first step was always following each other on Instagram after dating apps. You go from dating apps to Instagram.
Yeah, or Snapchat at the time. Oh, but you dated in your 30s. I don't think this is age agnostic is what I'm hearing now, is people do this no matter how old they are.
I guess for me, personal opinion, I never swiped on profiles that had Instagram linked. I actually don't it doesn't bring me joy to see someone's Instagram linked, and I don't care. Surely I stalk them, but I don't need to follow them. But it's not about me. It's about you, the listener. To get to the bottom of your question is that when should you follow the person you're seeing? I, again, think it's a conversation between you and the person you've been seeing. Some people are weird about that. Some people are trying to collect all the followers. Maybe it's just, hey, I see your Instagram. Should we follow each other? What do you think about that? And have a conversation about it instead of trying to guess if she's going to be okay with it, because you never know.
I'm so mixed on this one. So many opinions on this one. It's so mixed. I personally, if you're interested in this person, for your own sanity, would recommend not following them quite yet. 2 dates is not that long. And I think the reality is there is a big difference, it's going to sound weird, but between Instagram and reality, right? Mm-hmm. And you only are going to see one angle of things, and you're not going to know what's actually happening. Especially in these early stages, we know there's a lot of stories that people start to make in their head about what's going on with this person.
Yeah.
If you don't hear back from someone within an hour, let's say you text them, then you go on social media and you see something. Let's say you see that they're at some concert. You don't know if they actually were there a day ago or they're posting it real time, but you're going to infer that they're ignoring you because of this, or make an excuse that they're not ignoring you if you think that that's what they're doing. You're basically just you're not letting the story unfold. You're making a lot of these assumptions that you know this person more than you actually do. And I think that actually can be really detrimental for a budding relationship, in my opinion. I've been there before. I remember my most serious ex, he added me on Facebook. This is a long time ago when Instagram wasn't a thing, or less of a thing. And he wasn't even a big Facebook user. But what happened was, we had met in person, then we went on one date. and then he added me. Or no, he actually even added me before we went on the date. We had the date like set up. Yes, so we had the date set up, but he added me before that because we'd met in person like at a group gathering. So anyways, we had a date set up. It was the day before Valentine's Day, and he canceled that day and basically was like, let's reschedule this. And at the time I was like, oh, okay, like never a good thing, but because he was like, let's reschedule it. Okay. The next day I see a girl check in him and her to like this wine event and was like, happy Valentine's Day. And I'm like, what the fuck? You know, like basically like, does this guy have a girlfriend? I was spiraling, making all these stories. It turns out it's like his best friend that later was not an issue at all. Like never romantic connotation. She dated his friend. Like there was nothing there, but because I had no backstory at this point and I couldn't just ask him because it was like basically like we didn't have this conversation. It was something I was just observing on social media. I feel like it would have been really weird if I was like, hey, what is this? You know, I mean, I could have, but it was like one of those situations that I almost wish I just didn't have that data because it wasn't accurate and it caused me to make all these assumptions that ended up not being true at all.
Yeah, because you are inferring all of this information and your mind just naturally fills in the blanks and it never goes well. I feel like the mind never takes you to a place that's a good thing. It's never like, oh, they haven't texted you back. They must be sitting on their couch thinking about you. Like your mind doesn't think that. Your mind's like, they're out there fucking someone else. Listen, I don't think it's ever a good idea to go down the rabbit hole of someone's social media. But sure, curiosity gets to the best of us. And if they have an open account, I'm going to look. I'm definitely going to look.
Definitely.
I had someone I was casually dating say to me, I found your Instagram. I'm about to embark on it. Is there anything I should know before I do this? And I appreciated that because I was like, oh, you may see some pictures with this ex. We talked about that, opened up that conversation. Then I was like, have at it. And then a few hours later, he came back. He's like, what was this picture from? It felt like more of we were involved in the internet stalking, which actually made it better because then he wasn't like judging me or making these inferences. Now, before you follow, I think it's always good to have that conversation or just let her know, I would like to follow you on Instagram. What are your thoughts on that? Yeah. Obviously, you're going to look. You're going to look.
Everyone looks. Everyone looks. And
have to.
You know, everyone has different opinions on social media too and what they care if people see or not. Probably a good indication is someone private or public. That could be like the first pass of how much they care if you're seeing it. I'm just thinking about it. We've talked to a lot of daters recently that went on 1 or 2 dates. Things fizzle out, as a lot of times they do. And now they've got this person always looking at their stories.
Oh my God.
And it's like the graveyard of text is now the graveyard on Instagram too. And I think you ultimately need to ask yourself, like, do I want this person that I barely know knowing my life? And that's a personal decision. Some of you use social media for different things. Some of you barely use it. Some people don't give a fuck. Like, that's up to you. Personally, for me, I would not want this rando that especially if I like them and then they just like ghost to me.
Yeah.
I don't need them looking at my Instagram. Like, why?
No. I know we hear that from so many daters who say, oh yeah, we went on a few dates and now we're just Instagram friends. I'm sorry, you're not friends.
You're not friends. No. If that person doesn't want to hang out in real life, they are not your friend.
You're not friend. Just because they respond, they give you an emoji for your stories. That's not a friend. That's an audience member. And that's not a real person in your life. So stop thinking about that as like a connection of some sort.
Yeah.
Who wants that?
You also need to think about your own mental health. That's kind of what I was saying at the beginning of like, what stories are you going to say, especially in those fragile early days where you just don't really know where things are going. But then let's say the decision has been made, like we're not going to date. Mm-hmm. Then do you want to be constantly looking at this person? Because we already established that curiosity kills the cat here. There's no way you're not going to look at their story if you're interested and you're following them. There's absolutely no way. It's like, do you even want to put yourself through that mind fuck, basically?
Yeah. Oh, it's so awkward. It's so awkward. And when you have a public account, I mean, you really have no control over who follows you. You can't exactly like remove this I guess you can block them from seeing your stuff. So yes, that is one way. But the Facebook thing is actually pretty interesting. I think I've only had one guy that I casually dated who added me on Facebook. He's still a Facebook friend. And I never knew what to do with this because we went on 2 dates, nothing happened. And now it's like, do I unfriend him? Do I look at his post? Do I interact with him? I don't know what to do with this person. So I kind of just muted his stuff because he might as well not even be a Facebook friend at this point.
I was just thinking, remember that guy that you caught for me, the ghost?
Yes.
For all the people that missed the story, I basically like had this hot and heavy dates lined up. The guy goes completely MIA. UA finds him on Bumble to try to set him up, but he didn't take the bait. But I believe we're still connected on LinkedIn. I need to like go in there and maybe
LinkedIn. I feel like that's even worse.
Like, why?
Why?
This is the problem. It's just like this graveyard of people that you forget about it, and then something reminds you, and you're like, oh yeah, this person now has a snapshot into my life. And again, everyone has different thresholds of how much they care about this stuff. We're in the age of the internet where essentially nothing is private anymore. So you need to decide for you what your lines are on privacy. But before we get into more, let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsors.
This episode is made possible by higherdose. I swear every time I leave the spa, I wish I could have a sauna at home. And now I can with the portable infrared sauna blanket by higherdose. You just lay down inside the blanket, turn up the heat, and sweat it out at home. It has all the benefits of a large, expensive sauna, but needs less budget and less space. You just plug it in and begin. The higherdose sauna blanket promotes circulation, detoxes the body, helps to burn calories, and it's excellent for muscle recovery. And I personally like that saunas promote glowing skin, improve my mood, and help me sleep so much better. You can now get the higherdose infrared sauna blanket for as low as $50 a month through Affirm with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Get your own today by going to higherdose.com. You can use the promo code DATEABLE at checkout to save 15% off. That's HIGHERDOSE.com and use the promo code DATEABLE. Or just go to higherdose.com/dateable to save 15% off. Have you ever thought about how much better dating would be if you had a whole army of people supporting you along the way? We know that dating can be frustrating and lonely, but it can also feel fulfilling and fun. Have you recently decided you want to make some changes to your love life? Maybe you've recently re-entered the dating scene. Maybe you've gone on one too many dates that went nowhere. Or maybe you're just ready to take your current relationship to the next level. That is exactly why we created the Sounding Board, a true extension of our podcast that delivers a personalized experience, which includes monthly office hours where you can drop in and chat with us about anything, weekly sound-offs with guided discussions, and regular virtual happy hours. Allow Julie and I to become your dating Sherpas to provide real-time guidance and wisdom in a more intimate way so we can all navigate dating and relationships together. Join the Sounding Board today by going to dateablepodcast.com/sounding board. Again, that's dateablepodcast.com/sounding board.
So I want to turn this convo. Do you think there's any benefits of adding someone early?
No. No, I really don't. Because if you're really in the early getting to know each other stages of a relationship, it's so much better to get to know each other in real life instead of looking at photos or inferring from posts. So no, you?
I think that I can see one, but I love that you're just like, nope, I can't see any. And this may or may not be a benefit, so let me know your thoughts. I did think, like, when my ex did add me, it made me really happy. Like, it made me feel like, oh, this person is interested in pursuing something more. It was like another data point. If he had just added me and didn't ask me out, I would have been like, this is weird. But because he was like asking me out and adding me, it made it feel like, okay, this person's like interested in pursuing this and like making this someone that's like in their orbit. Right? Again, you have no idea what someone's worldview is on social media. It could mean absolutely nothing to them. But the way I interpreted it at the time was that, and I knew he wasn't like a huge social media person either. So it kind of felt good in that regard. It also did give some intimacy, whether it was false intimacy Yes, you could argue that, but you feel like you know a little more about this person. So you kind of can cut some of the date talk and you're not using that time to have that. You can get into some of the more things that are going to connect you a bit more. So I'd say those are the only things I can kind of see as positive. Would the spiral I endured actually account for those positives? Probably not, but there are some I can see.
Yeah, I guess before the internet, it'd be the equivalent of you going on a date and bringing your photo albums.
That'd be hilarious.
And going, when I was in college, here's what I wore and here's how I was, which would be kind of interesting. I'm sure people would have loved that in early dating and like looking through each other's photo albums. So maybe it's the equivalent of that. Whether you're following someone on social media or not, it's still about keeping that communication open and not trying to read their mind or inferring or filling in the blanks. And if you can control yourself and to understand that it's an open conversation after your discovery process on social media, I think that's probably the healthiest place to be.
And back to like the original question of will this person like it or think it's creepy? I think that needs to be a conversation you two have. And you can have that very easily, just like, hey, you know, it's such the norm this day and age that people add each other on social media. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
You know, just throw it out as a topic. Or I was listening to this podcast the other day where they talked about it. You know, like there's so many ways to tease that in, even just understanding their own relationship with social media. Are they private? Do they have a big following? Do they log in once every 6 months versus every day? Like all this is different in my opinion. So like how do you just get to know that? And some of that stuff you can observe by looking, but some of it you really don't know unless you just talk to the person.
You really just have to talk to this person. I do appreciate, actually something else just jogged my memory. Remember the photographer/chemist that I dated or went on one date and gave him a bloody nose? Yeah, that
I was
guy.
going to say, I don't remember who that is, but then when you said that part, I'm like, yep,
nose?
now I know.
Yep.
That part I remembered. Photographer/chemist, I had no idea who you were talking about.
Oh, yeah, I guess I never told you what he did for a living.
No, I think you did. I just forgot.
Yeah,
it was just the bloody nose stuck with me.
It's not the
all
label
these
we
years.
use for him. The bloody nose was the guy. And it's a longer story, so you can dig back through previous episodes to hear that one. It's pretty hilarious. But he is a chemist by day and photographer by night. And when we were on our pseudo date, he said, well, you'll probably go on Instagram and find me. But just so you know, my account is all the photographs I take.
Oh.
So he pulled up his Instagram because he does nudes. He does artistic nudes of women. So his entire account is naked women.
He needs to get ahead of that. Yeah.
Yes.
He needs to get ahead
I
of that.
totally understood why he had to do that. But he's like, feel free to follow. But just so you know, this is what I do. He's like, but this is kind of like my other job and I'm not going to hide it from you. So I did
not know
that.
this about Bloody Nose Guy. I feel like that might have been the story, but then it got overshadowed by the bigger story and it just got lost. But for anyone that wants to go back, Rock Bottom was the episode.
Oh, yes.
And it was season 7, Rock Bottom, where we talked about our rock bottom, the stories that we were
good job.
so humiliated that they happened and
Good
how
job.
that made us change how we date. So that's a good one for anyone.
Good job. I was actually really glad that we were connected on Instagram because years later, remember I told you this?
Yeah, you
Because I
reached out to him, right?
I reached out to him to apologize for what happened that night because I was a fucking drunken mess. I was such a hot mess. That was his first Tinder date ever. And it happened to be me after 6 hours of drinking. And it was not a good night. I gave him a bloody nose. You can go read all about it in season 7. But years later, I wanted to reach out to him and just apologize for that night. And he's like, I don't even remember. I don't even remember that happening. I'm like, oh, great. Was that memorable for you, was it?
Yay, there's closure right there. You're like, I guess I didn't have to be worrying about this. I definitely have reconnected with people also that you could argue this is a good or bad thing. Like I've removed their phone number, they've removed my phone number, and the only path was basically social media. Whether that's someone you probably should be connecting with, that's another story.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
social media. It's one of those things that I know it's funny. We start off like, I'm glad we didn't date in our 20s, but I really think this is everyone now. It's just the world that we're in. So we're hearing this, like, I think, of course, it's going to be skewed a little depending on age, but this is something that comes up all the time, and people will add you before you even meet in some cases. Like, there's all sorts of different behavior with it. For you, it's really just checking in with, what does social media mean to me? It might mean nothing, or it might be like my whole life is on there. You need to decide what comfort level you have, remembering this is a stranger. This is something that could fall apart at any minute, especially in these early stages. Personally, I think until you DTR or have some sort of semblance of this is a relationship, this is all in rocky terrain that you may never see this person again.
Yep.
So at this stage, like, do you want this person seeing years and years of your life? That's the question for you. And also, is it going to be good for my mental health to see their years and years of their life?
And just to clarify, it's not about age. I think it's about when I was dating in my 20s, there was no Instagram. So I'm happy that when I was dating in my 20s, there was no Instagram. And thinking back, I was like, how did I do it? I just went into dates not knowing anything about anybody. How wild. How dangerous. How could I do that? But yeah, that's what we did. We took a gamble. We met people online at the time. And then you had no follow-up to dig up more information. There was no LinkedIn at the time. Maybe you can go on Facebook, but a lot of people have private Facebook accounts. Ooh, their MySpace. You might have found their MySpace and maybe found some photos there, but that was the extent of it.
Okay, like, yes, I agree with you. When we did in our 20s, it was not existent. But in our 30s, Instagram existed. And we were both dating in our 30s. It just wasn't as prevalent, I don't think, as it is even now. You didn't see it in profiles as much. It existed, though.
People exchange Instagram handles faster than they exchange phone numbers these days.
Yeah, it's definitely skyrocketed in just prominence, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think people think it's less intimate than phone number. It's
like you do you at the end of the day. Like, it's all about your relationship to it. If you really believe it's less intimate, go for it. Is it? It isn't. It's like, yes, they don't have your phone number, but with your phone number, what do they really have? I don't know. It depends how you look at it. So everyone's different, but ultimately just know what's coming from it. And do you need this person in your life after the fact? And if you do get in a relationship, there'll be many opportunities to add them on Instagram.
Yeah, I hope. Unless if your partner's like, I know a couple that she did not want her husband to add her on Instagram. She had a private account, and well, they're no longer married, so that says a lot.
That doesn't seem like a good sign.
But she kept saying, she told him for years, they were married for like 15 years. I just want to keep my life private with, what I do with my girlfriends and when I hang out with my girlfriends. Yeah. And he was like, cool, that's all right. You do you. You have your separate life. I never knew what was on this private account. I was more on the husband side of things. And years later, they got divorced, and it turned out that she had this completely separate life in Miami and other relationships. So
look, I'm all for privacy, but this feels like if you're sharing a life with someone, you don't need a private Instagram account.
Yeah,
that's so wild. I don't know. I feel like my type is people that don't like social media. That has been the last 3 boyfriends I've had, and I love it. Love it.
Me too. I love it when I go on their Instagram. It's like the last post from 2016. I'm like, yes.
Right.
I'm in love with this guy. He never posts.
Well, hopefully this was helpful. There's still a lot for you to decide on your own. We're never going to prescribe the perfect solution for you because everyone views it differently. But hopefully this gives you a nuanced look into some of the pros and cons.
And thank you, listeners, for sending in these questions. You can email us your questions, hello@dateablepodcast.com, or DM us on Instagram at dateablepodcast.
Oh, how perfect. How fitting. Anyways, have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you next week for brunch.
Bye. The Dateable Podcast is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts. Want to continue the conversation? First, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter with the handle @Dateable Podcast. Tag us in any post with the hashtag StayDateable, and trust us, we look at all those posts. Then head over to our website, dateablepodcast.com. There you'll find all the episodes as well as articles, videos, and our coaching service with vetted industry experts. You can also find our premium Why series where we dissect, analyze, and offer solutions to some of the most common dating conundrums. We're also downloadable for free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Overcast, Stitcher Radio, and other podcast platforms. Your feedback is valuable to us, so don't forget to leave us a review. And most importantly, remember to stay dateable.
Call of Duty Modern Warfare is here, and so is Mountain Dew.
Roger that.
Now you can unlock in-game rewards like only Dew can.
Wait, what rewards?
A Dew Operator Skin.
Man, I love operator skins.
Dual double XP, and even Call of Duty points.
You're kidding me. Double XP and Call of Duty points? This is incredible. I can't believe it.
Soldier, get a hold of yourself.
Oh, roger that.
Look for specially marked packaging and visit mtndewgaming.com for details and restrictions. Open to U.S. residents 17 plus. Call of Duty points available on 12 and 24 packs and free 28-23.